Today we're talking about some of the richest people in America. Actually, in the world. The ones that usually pop up on the Forbes list. And today, we're going to be talking about how they legally avoid paying taxes. FBI, I'm talking about the likes of Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, Donald Trump. Now, that said, most of the time, the subject of taxing the rich, they're usually vilified. And even though there's a lot of politicians out there trying to figure out how to tax them more, this is not what that video is going to be about. This video is going to be about figuring out how they do it.
Yes! Hell yeah!
Have you ever really asked yourself like how the rich pay less tax? And have you thought to yourself like, hey, if they can use these strategies to not pay billions in taxes, in some cases zero, how do I do the same thing?
Good question. You are a good question.
If you haven't thought about it, or you've thought about it a little bit and you haven't done any of that research, well, then today is your lucky day, because that's what we're going to be exploring, at least the legal parts.
Nice.
The mantra for this video is that if you can't beat them, if you can't beat the rich, try and join them if you can. Now for some more context. ProPublica wrote an article on how the rich don't pay a ton of taxes, and they gave examples like, in 2007, Jeff Bezos, a multi-billionaire and founder of Amazon, did not pay a penny in federal income tax, and he achieved the feat again in 2011.
This is business!
And in 2018, the Tesla founder Elon Musk also didn't pay any tax. And Warren Buffett, he's been pretty open about the fact that he pays less taxes than his secretary. Lastly, my favorite villain, Donald J. Trump, who said during one of the presidential debates versus Hillary Clinton that paying less taxes made him smart.
He didn't pay any federal income tax. So
That makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid,
So now that we know who a handful of the cast and characters are that we'll be discussing today, now let's talk about some of the strategies that the rich use to pay less taxes. But before we do that, let's talk about why this topic is even important. There's been a growing concern about the growing wealth gap between the rich and the poor. Put another way, the middle class is disappearing. There's tons of reasons that can be attributed to why that is. But one of the key reasons is the tax system. And more importantly, how money is made in the current tax system. For those who get paid via W-2, pay way more tax than those who don't get paid by a wage. And overall, this is not necessarily a great thing, but it's good to know, because if you and I don't figure out how to get taxed the same as the rich, right, you're going to continue to get fucked. Now that that's clear and out in the open, let's talk about a few tools that the rich use to pay less taxes. And more specifically, we'll be talking about things like capital gains, tax credits, tax write-offs. Without further ado, let's just dive into these topics. And once again, it's important to dive into these topics, because if you understand the system you're in, you can actually get out of said system, right? Now, let's dive into what we came here to talk about. All right, strategy one, capital gains. If you're making W-2 income and you're making, multiple six figures, you're typically going to be in that higher tax bracket, which is around 37%. If you're not making money with W-2 income, then you don't have to worry about getting taxed at such a ridiculous rate. And the max you have to pay is capital gains tax, which is typically taxed around 20%. That's why Warren Buffett says that he pays less tax than his secretary. The next concept, strategy called buy, borrow, die. Now, if you're rich and you have assets like stocks, or you own a company, or you're just a wealthy individual and you buy a ton of stocks and those go up, you may be getting wealthier, but until you actually try to sell your company or sell stocks, there is no taxable event. And so therefore, you can get wealthier by just your assets appreciating without ever needing to pay taxes on that. Let's say you need money, like Elon Musk, the assets, the stock that he had in Tesla, but he didn't actually need to sell Tesla stock, at least originally. But in that case, that's a great example of the buy, borrow, die strategy. You just leverage your assets, or borrow versus your assets. You spend that money. There isn't any taxable event. And when you die, then you can let the government and your heirs even everything out. Third strategy we're talking about today is business credits. Your boy Donald Trump has used a ton of business credits. The one that's kind of hilarious is the conservation easement tax. It's one of the many ones that Donald Trump has used in his real estate career, to avoid paying taxes. legally for the most part. And so business credits or leveraging credits for your business is another way that the rich and the wealthy are able to write off. Using these strategies, rich people can continue to make a ton of money without having to pay any tax, and there's nothing the government can actually do about it. However, that said, if you're a W-2 earner, you're getting screwed because you got to pay your taxes up front. Is there a resolution for this? Probably not. Like, I don't see anything changing anytime soon. If the very rich continue to become much richer, while millions of people like you and myself are working, standards will decline. There will be a handful of oligarchs that just run the government. All right, few takeaways from this video. If you want to be wealthy in America, you have to figure out how to stop getting paid a W-2 income, figure out how to grow your wealth. Another takeaway, there are 2 ways to get rich and grow your wealth. Another strategy is to figure out how to reduce your tax burden and grow your wealth through unrealized gain. And then last takeaway is, if you want to beat the game, you have to learn the game. And one of the parts of the game is learning how the tax code works. So starting to incorporate things like tax planning. That's it. That's all I got. If you like content like this, make sure you like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Until next time, peace out.